Hey, Colorado Springs. This is Jenny Bayless, and I am back with the third episode in our mini series about rental properties that I've had for 5 years, and showing the projections the actuals related to them. So we'll just kind of dive right into this one. Um, this property is my first BRRRR that I did on purpose. So my very first BRRRR was an accidental BRRRR. And this is my first purposeful BRRRR. So I bought it from a wholesaler. I remember that I had just parked my car, getting ready to go into my job for the day, and I saw this email pop up on my phone, and I had just bought a turnkey home kind of right down the road from this one, so I already knew all the numbers related to it. I knew what I could get for rent. I knew what the ARV would be for it. And maybe impulsively, I'm not sure. I immediately called the wholesaler and said I wanted the house. And like during my lunch break, I brought a check over to title. So yeah, it all happened really quickly. And I think I'll probably share more about the kind of the process that we've gone through with this house for the last 5 years, as opposed to the individual numbers, performance numbers over the last 5 years. But yeah, because it's gone through a lot. And kind of what I've learned on this home is that this property, partially because we bought it correctly, partially due to luck, I've been able to learn a lot about real estate from it, without being, really, really, in a bad spot for it. So made a ton of mistakes on this property. So again, kind of, impulsively bought it from the wholesaler. I used a hard money loan for the very first time. So that was a learning experience on that. We did not do an inspection on the house, and they did allow us to do a walkthrough. But as all the homeowners were present, so it was a little awkward. So kind of peeked my head in the bathroom. Oh yeah, we can just kind of clean these tiles. And then when we actually closed on the property, like go to touch the tile and it falls right off the wall. So, okay, I have to do an entirely new bathroom. Totally got it because it was just mildew city in there. So yeah, so it was just a lot of issues with this house. But again, it was so forgiving for us that we're able to learn a ton from this property and still come out on top. Thank goodness. So it could have gone a totally different way. I think so. I think back and I look at that a lot. So we bought it in 2017 from a wholesaler, purchased it for $113,000, put 20% down, and funded the rehab. So as many of you know, when you work with a hard money lender, you kind of have to prove yourself for them to want to lend to you. So, again, this is our first BRRRR, first on purpose BRRRR. So didn't really have a huge track record, had, some rental properties, did have one BRRRR under our belt, had a good business plan for this, but they wanted us to put a lot of our own cash into the deal as well. After the success of this one, the lending terms were drastically different, way more favorable. So kind of have to cut your teeth before they, give you the best terms, is kind of what I've learned on that. So again, had to put 20% down on it. The first time we renovated it, and caveat, I'll explain what I mean by that. So the first time we renovated it, it was a full house rehab. So including closing fees, holding costs, repairs, all that good stuff, is about $25,000. So we were all in for about $50,000 in personal funds, all in the house for about $140,000. And we initially got it rented out for $1,200 a month. It is currently being rented out for $1,425, I believe, and that definitely is quite a lot under market value. The tenants that are in there, they're great. So, win-win for everyone. But we were cash flowing, from the start, from when we, originally got renters in there. So that was great. And then, the very first go around, it appraised at 175,000. But another learning lesson for me at this point was the concept of a seasoning period. So um, I had done my accidental BRRRR and did a cash out refinance on that one on a separate property, and didn't think anything of it. The time passed between purchase and the cash out refi. I didn't put any thought into that, didn't dawn on me. But yeah, most banks have what's called a seasoning requirement, and that is the amount of time that has to pass between your original loan on the property and then when a bank is willing to give you cash out on a new loan on the property. So in that case, at that time for this lender, they required 6 months. I did not even know of that as a concept. So, I went to go do a rate and term, or excuse me, I went to go do a cash out refinance on this property because I wanted my $50,000 back on it that we put in, and the lender said, "Yeah, you can't do that just yet. You got to wait." So that was really, really disappointing. It was a big lesson that I learned, because obviously that's a lot of money to get stuck in a property that you have to wait 6 months for. So eventually, when we were able to do the cash out refinance, and definitely, I've harped on it before, but you always want to check with your takeout financing lender and your rehab purchase, interim financing lender, and make sure that everything is on the same page and that you are able to do what you want to do at the end of that. Because if you're not, it's super frustrating from experience. So again, ask your lender, what is the seasoning requirement for if I want to do, ABC, or depending on how you took down the property, that can vary widely between, what you're allowed to do on the back end. So, your mileage may vary, but just definitely check with both lenders and make sure that they're in sync and that you're able to do what you're intending on doing. Because a very, very simple tweak might make or break like the whole deal. So just keep that in mind. So anyways, it appraised at 175,000 at the time. And I was able to get about 44,000 back out. So we're just in for, about $5,000 of the property, or cash in the property, which, I would consider that a pretty successful BRRRR. That was about 2% of that appraised value, as opposed to if you wanted to put down 20% of that value, that's about 35,000. So 5,000 versus 35,000. Yeah, that's a great option for that. So then fast forward to 2021. 2021. Through natural appreciation, we then did another cash out refinance. It appraised at 325,000. So we got about $100,000 back. And we're able to lower our interest rate pretty substantially too. So from about 5.125% was the original interest rate. And then currently we have a rate of 3.625% on that. So we were able to leverage more at a lower rate, and then, be able to reinvest that back into a different property. So I learned a lot of things about the acquisition process of this property. I also learned a lot about the financing piece of this. So, mistakes are everywhere on this property. So, again, a lot of lessons were learned. And then about a month into renting this one out, we got a call from our tenants that said, hey, by the way, our toilet is leaking. And I'm just thinking maybe the wax spring is off or something like that. No, it was a totally busted sewer line, like busted. There was no, salvaging of this thing. So that is where I learned about the concept of getting a sewer line inspection. So anyone who's worked with me knows that I, come pretty close to just begging you to, always get a sewer scope inspection, because you never know what you're going to find, and that can drastically change everything that there is about this deal. So another lesson learned, always get a sewer scope inspection. So So yeah, so we'll just kind of go through, this property over the years. Not a huge rent bump, between 1,200 and now I think I said 1,425 is what it currently is. I would say based on similar homes, probably 1,550, maybe 1,600 because it is really nice, and has a garage and everything, would be market rate. So it is quite a bit under market rate, and, I'm fine with it. I know that I've made that, point known before that, if we have great tenants in the property that care for the home, that is not worth, squeezing a few extra dollars in rent out of it. So, again, we have fantastic tenants that are in there right now, and just yeah, so just kind of letting it ride. But again, so I guess 1,200 to 1,550, 1,600, 400 ish dollars over 6 years. That's not bad. So that's a pretty good jump. But just kind of going through some of the expenses that we have, and kind of calling out attention to. Um, I noticed that when I was going back and recreating this snapshot here, that the repairs every single year were under $1,000 each year. So we have 875, 810, 577, zero, and then 875 again. And I think a lot of that has to do with the fact that we did such an extensive renovation on the front end that really is just like little tiny things here and there that pop up just like any house really. Um, and then another thing to highlight is, insurance is going up quite a bit. And that's, I think that has a lot to do with the rebuild cost of things. And I will share that 2023, our column is going to look a lot different, unfortunately, on this house. We had a pipe burst over that cold snap that we had a little while back, and just completely flooded the house, unfortunately. So that has been a whole debacle. So, working with insurance, getting that rebuild, all that good stuff. So yeah, can't overemphasize the amount of insurance that you want to have. Just please work with a really good insurance provider. We have a great team that makes sure that we're fully covered, and thank God, because it's probably going to be quite a bit of damage, unfortunately, for that. So I don't mind spending a few extra $100 a year to make sure that I'm protected from that. So yeah, just kind of highlighting that did go up over the last 5 years. Taxes, same way. We went from 483 in 2018 to 875 in 2022. That's a huge jump, in my opinion. And I think it's only going to get higher, unfortunately. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking about, your properties over time. Another thing to mention is that, let's see, I did want to point out, I do have my mortgage interests located as part of my operating income, or net operating income, which, yes, I know the by the book definition, debt costs should not be included in there. I'm just including it in there for the sake of example purposes, showing, the debt that we had to carry for this property. So it kind of hovered around like 6,000 and change up until 2021, 2022, when we did that cash out refinance. And for 2022, our interest expense jumped up to about $8,800 for the year. But our cash flow was still positive for the year. And just remember, I took out $100,000 that we were able to then redeploy into a different property. So cash flow positive, and had an extra $100,000 to then redeploy. So I'm very happy with that move. And we're able to lower our interest rate too. So just looking real quick to see if there's anything else worth really mentioning. It's kind of all the same as the other properties. Once you kind of see these a few times, they start to look familiar. But yeah, I mean, expenses they're going to go up. Rent hopefully is going to go up as well to cover that. But yeah, I think it's just really important to highlight that, over the course of 5 years, we've had a lot happen to this house. So, I purchased it not super intelligently. Had a bunch of hiccups on the refinance side of it. Didn't know to do a sewer scope inspection. Unfortunately, even today, we, have issues pop up. The house, the pipes freezing and causing a flood in the house. So that's, obviously really unfortunate, but it's also just kind of a fact of life when you own enough rental properties, stuff like that's probably going to happen. So just be prepared and, just kind of accept it as, as a headache that will come up, throughout your landlording years. But yeah, other than that, I mean, again, this property caused us to learn a lot about really the BRRRR process and then kind of everything else that could possibly go wrong. Thankfully, we've had really good tenants in this one, so we haven't had any sort of like tenant type issues. It's all been just weird financing or procedural issues that have popped up on that. So I just wanted to share this last one in the series, and thanks everyone for listening.